Hello, 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 hello. I see we have people already queued up and waiting. That is good. I have Ricard from Sweden, Jeff from UK, and Jerry. I want to say Utah. But I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, glad you all are here. And I already got showing 9 viewers. So that's cool. And it is Thursday, the 3 p.m. live stream. And again, this one is set up for people that maybe are on a different schedule, particularly people in Europe, who this is their late evening for them. So it gives them a chance to get on here. Oh, Jerry, Tennessee. Randall is Utah. Randall, he's from Utah. Gotcha, Jerry. Okay. Anyway, so I try to do this on Thursdays so that there can be some interaction, some maybe questions, subject matter, different things brought up, and interaction. There's always a good time for questions and, of course, answers. So at this point, the subject matter is kind of wide open. I have not committed, let's say, to a particular subject. There's been, normal stuff going on around the shop, trying to get stuff moving, keep stuff moving. Okay, so Jeff, you want to say from East London, England? Okay. Well, I think in the past, I think you did say UK, but I could be wrong. But I'll go with East London, England. I like that. Paul, missed a few videos. Have you started Brooklyn Pony yet? No, and the car itself won't be started for a while because it all has to come back apart. The engine, transmission, everything has to come back out before it gets paint. And I'm not gonna hook everything up and start it and then take it all back apart. So at this point, I did all the test fitting with the engine, transmission, cross member, headers, all those pieces and parts. And for right now, it is what it is. So the goal is to get the underside of the car done, get it all in epoxy, get it all coated with lizard skin, and then piece everything back together. Now, of course, I do want to paint the engine bay independent of the car, make sure it's done. And prior to that, I need to make sure everything else is fitting, master cylinder, brake pedal, gas pedal, whatever, all has to be in place. So it won't be started for a while. I can't say when, but that's just how it is. Sammy Lisa Smith from the Smiths in Chatsworth, Georgia. Okay, glad you're here. Hello from the Smiths. Sorry from Chatsworth, Georgia. What are you sorry for? No reason to be sorry. Jeff, in the past, I've referred to Barking East London, England. That may be a bit too mad for some folks. And mad doesn't mean angry, I would assume. Different terms in different countries and how they're used. Speaking of which, and I know occasionally we get people on here from Australia. I'm always glad to have them on and interact. But our interaction in the States with people in or of the country Australia is really kind of limited. Because we get the standard, kangaroos and outback and this particular building or this particular part of the country and whatnot. But we all know that it's pretty vast and there's a lot going on. Well, I just happened to click on a TV show last night, and I think it's called Resto Rods. I think, and it's a restoration type of show, but it's out of Australia. And it's funny because my wife normally, yeah, Jeff, I didn't think that's what I thought. Not angry, just crazy. But normally, whenever I put on a car show like that, my wife tunes out. She's not interested. She doesn't want to hear about it or see what they're doing because to her it's all just kind of the same thing. Well, I'm not sure the host of the show or the owner of the business, but he, of course, with being from Australia and having their own verbiage, let's say for tools and parts of the car and all that sort of thing. She was actually interested in that show. So they were working on a 39. Now, how can I say it? I think it's 39. We would say Chrysler, just straight out Chrysler. But I think he was saying it Chrysler, like he was at, the inflection was different. Chrysler, I think is how he was saying it. Of course, with an Australian accent, it's even different. But anyway, it was interesting as he was talking about this 39 Chrysler. I don't know how that comment went, but they were working on the rear fenders, the trunk lid, stuff like that. And of course, his terminology is guards. They call them guards instead of fenders. They say guards, and of course, it's guards. With the accent. So, and the trunk was a bonnet, and or no, boot. So I think it was boot. Bonnet's up front, right? So anyway, as he's talking about the car and what they're going to do with it and fix certain things and repair certain things, I think he said, I forget what the term was for a dent, but one of the doors, the rear door, they had suicide doors, and one had opened up far enough that it hit the rear guard on the passenger side, put a dent in it, and he was going to fix that. And I don't know if he used the term whammy. He may have said whammy. I don't remember exactly. It was an odd term, but then he's taking things apart and he's removing, the doors and the guards, and he's removing the bumper, the rear bumper, and as he's working on it, he's struggling with the breaking the bolts loose, and he's underneath the car, and he's got a 1/2-inch ratchet, and he's pushing on it, and anyway, he said the bolts were incorrect. Like they put different bolts on different sizes, and one bolt still had a socket stuck to it from whenever somebody had worked on it. There was a socket on it, but he had said that I think he said the term was somebody must have put this on with a rattler. I think is what he said, rattler. I'm pretty sure that was the term, referring to an impact. What we would say is an impact gun. I think he called it a rattler. It's like I said, it was interesting to hear the different terms. And then, of course, like I said, my wife was kind of interested as well. So, Jeff, verbiage. Now you know why we enjoy listening to you in the U.S. so much. Okay. I have to take your word for it. And I don't know if is it because of what. Now here's the thing. You can identify people generally from England or Scotland or Ireland, Sweden, Denmark. I mean, we all kind of get those accents. We can register those pretty well. But here in the States, we have a lot of different accents, just in the states themselves. So in the South, you could have a very drawn out accent. And of course, in the North, it's kind of more shorter and more harsh in a sense. And then out West, it's a little bit different as well. But what's interesting for me is, I grew up in Pennsylvania, which would be up in the North. And I've lived in the South for well over 30 years now, counting my military time. Well, I understand that for me to talk to people in the South that grew up here, they have a much more pronounced Southern accent. But I think my accent, I would not say is inherently Southern, but it's also not inherently Northern either. There's a lot of variance there. And I think I'm kind of in between those lines. Same way with my wife and even our kids. And it's funny because we'll go back to visit family in Pennsylvania, and people that live there hear my wife talk, and they'll say, "I just love your Southern accent." And it's like, no, this isn't really a Southern accent. Anyway, so it's just kind of interesting to have those different variables in the accents and how they sound. So, Paul, it's kind of sad that Holden is dead. Yep. Always liked their Utes. In fact, on that show, there was I don't know what year, make, model, but it was a Ute that this man was driving around in. And he had gone to some sort of a custom art shop where they build art pieces from old engine components and stuff like that. Grimm something. I don't remember the name. It was Grimm something. And it was like GRIMM, I believe. And I couldn't make out. It was the lettering was real choppy looking, so I couldn't read it real very easily. But anyway, he was building coffee tables out of V8 engine blocks. And so this gentleman was picking up one of these engine blocks in his Ute. And, it was kind of interesting to see that it looks, in a sense, the Ute that he was driving, we would say an El Camino or something like that, looked, it was very smooth. It was very, very tapered. It was almost reminded me of a hearse, one of the modern hearse vehicles made from a Cadillac or something, where it's very smooth. So it was kind of interesting that it had that smooth feel to it. And then, of course, the squared off back of the bed or cab and then square bed. So it didn't have like a flowing transition. It was just like, nope, from here on it's a truck. So, but it was still, cool looking little vehicle. Sammy, we're not making fun. We just talk different. Yeah. Jeff, Barry, you have realized by now that my role on your live feeds is to keep you guessing. Okay. Hey, that works. Here's some coffee. Butch is checking in. Glad you're here. But anyway, but as I was saying, the shop over there, it seemed like a good bit of it was outside or open to the outside. Wherever he was working, it had like 3 walls and an open side to it. And there were cars driving by, and it was kind of odd. And then they brought in a car that I had never. Hello, RJ. Glad you're here. A car that I didn't even know existed. Now, it's not an Australian car. It was an American car. And I never knew it existed in a sense. I knew that the car existed, but the model of the car was what got me. Let me see what Jerry says. Jerry's saying he's still having alignment issues from side to side. I placed one of the shims on the passenger side, and it's some better. Yep. Well, it's always a struggle, Jerry. I can tell you that. It's always a struggle on that stuff. And that's, again, why I always say test fit. Try to record whatever you've put together, whatever you've figured out that'll work in that particular place, and try to keep track of that stuff. Karsten checking in. And Jeff, when I was working in Western Electric Bell Telephone Company, I was asked to telephone a female colleague. Nobody could understand when I responded. I tried to give her a ring, but she was engaged. That was pretty good. I like that. Marshall, spent my whole life in Georgia, but when I went to Georgia Southern for a while, I was accused of being a Yankee since I don't have a Southern drawl. Yeah. That's the thing. That is the thing, that Southern drawl. Let's see. Jerry is asking, but there's a 3/16 inch more gap on the driver's side. Have you elongated the hinge where it mounts to the hood? I think I may have, actually. I've done a bunch of different modifications over the years, and that may have been one of them where I elongated the slot for the bolt holes. I can't say for sure. I know I've done it on the hinge mount where it mounts to the apron. I know I've slotted those holes to get some height out of it, but I'm probably have done it to the mount point as well. Brian W., afternoon. Glad you're here. Yeah, Jeff, it is. But what I was going to mention, on this TV show, they rolled in this car, and I thought it's just another, car. Well, it was a 57 Thunderbird. Okay. Well, and I'll back up a second, because the guy with the Chrysler, the work they were doing to it, he was supposed to do a little bit of work, but this guy's son got involved and was having them fix a bunch of different things on it. And in the process, he had gone to a storage facility with the son, and they had two more Chryslers sitting inside of this building. One was like a 39 something, and the other was like a 50, 53, 54, 55, something along those lines. So they had a collection of Chryslers. But anyway, as they're going through the show, and of course finding more things to talk about, they roll in this 57 T-Bird. And I really didn't think much of it at first. The car was, a nice deep red, it had a white roof on it. It was one of the little side window cutouts or window holes in the removable top. I think they had one in American Graffiti, I think. But, I thought, it's just a 57 Thunderbird. Well, then they open the hood and they start talking about it. And they say, this is a 57 Thunderbird Phase 1. Phase 1? What does that mean? So I whipped out my phone real quick and I Googled it. Well, it turns out there were only 15 of these cars made, and they were made to run in at Daytona to intentionally to set speed records. And Thunderbird, they point out in an article that I was reading that it was, when GM brought out, or Chevy brought out the Corvette in '53, the Thunderbird was, the answer to the Corvette. And then the Corvette had set some speed records apparently prior, and then they brought out this Thunderbird that was purpose built just to set speed records. Well, a Phase 1 Thunderbird, there were only 15 made, and they were all made on, I think it was January something, 15th, 29th, something along those lines, in 1957. And then they took them to Speed Weeks in Daytona, and one of them set a flying speed record, a flying mile of 138 miles an hour. And it was interesting because these cars had superchargers on them. Well, once the guy started talking about the car, I was like, why is this car in Australia? Because he was talking about it as if, and he did mean this, that it was going to go into a storage container and get shipped to the U.S. for an auction. And he implied that it was like being shipped back to the U.S. Like, it had come over there for a restoration or something. So I was really kind of confused by that. However, in my search, looking it up on Google, there was apparently a Mecum was auctioning this very car. And there's only 8 of them left in the world. So obviously 7 of them either got crashed or burned or something. So there's only 8 left. And this one, being it was red with a white roof, they knew that was wrong. And so they repainted the roof to match the paint on the car, which was immaculate. Perfect match. Put it all back together, and they also had to repaint the hood bonnet because there's a throttle cable that actuated off of the carburetor to the supercharger, I believe, and they worked in conjunction. So there was something wrong with the cable, like it had been hitting the hood and causing damage, and they fixed that and then rerouted the cable. And then as I was looking it up on the internet, I think said that car had gone through an 18-month restoration in Australia. And then they had to get it shipped to the States. So kind of interesting. There's certain cars out there that you just don't know anything about, because it's not in your time period. It's not in your Rolodex of information, let's say. So that's the first I've heard of that. But of course, now I'll remember that for quite some time because I latch on to weird stuff like that. But I think they said that the value on that car at auction should be between $275,000 and $325,000. I thought it might be higher than that, but I don't know. So anyway, just one of those oddball things you happen to learn about. One, from a TV show, and two, from being right here on this live stream. You just learned something. You all get a bell for that. All right. Sammy Lisa Smith. Barry, can I ask, what kind of music do you listen to? Well, rock for the most part. I'm a big AC/DC fan, Metallica fan. I like 80s hard rock, stuff like that. I actually like old country. When I say old country, I mean like 60s, 70s country. I don't like the modern pop country stuff. It doesn't work for me. And then depending on what mood I'm in, I actually like jazz. To me, jazz is a very soothing music whenever you're trying to get, like if I'm doing some body work or something and I just want kind of a relaxing music, I'll put on some smooth jazz and just chill, just do the body work and listen to that music. I can go on for a long time with that. So, but I have a variety of tastes, let's say. I don't stick to one specific, type of music all the time, but probably 90% of the time it's going to be rock, classic rock. And then, all the stuff, all the bands from the 70s, the Doobie Brothers, Journey and, Foreigner and ELO and all those nice, cool old bands from the 70s. So good question. Scott. Hello all. How do you feel about drilling alignment holes on your panels, hinges after all alignment is completed to assist in final assembly? I see this technique used on some of popular car shows. That's a good question, Scott. And I will say this. I have done that and it works. I have done it. And what I've done on occasion is get everything where I want it. Take an 1/8 inch drill bit and drill straight through 2 locations. And then when you come back together, you can take that 2 drill bits, put them straight in, and you should be where you belong. I'm not against it, but some people might frown upon it. The only place I really would use it is probably in the door hinges. That's really the only place I can think of to use them and be comfortable with. So, Paul watched a few Rust Valley Restorer episodes on Netflix yesterday. Never heard of the show, but it was pretty interesting. Okay, well, maybe I'll have to look into them. Dave Conville checking in, late to class. Will there be a test later, Dave? And I sent you a message on Facebook, and I don't know if you saw it or responded back yet, because there's just something I wanted to mention to you, but it's no big deal. I don't want to mention it here because it would ruin the effect. Samuel Lee Smith, you got this. Okay. I'm not sure what that's a reference to, but I'll take your word for it. Greg checking in, and Greg Workshop. So if you haven't seen Greg's stuff, he's in Australia and he's doing some cool stuff. I know he's been doing a bunch of different things. He's working on his forge, which I'm not sure if it's completely finished or not, but I know he had that. And then he's also had a lathe that he bought that he was assembling and putting together. And I know there was some conflict, if I remember correctly. Something wasn't right with one of the adjusters. And so You might want to check out his channel if you get a chance. Again, kind of neat to get a different perspective from people and what they're doing. It is, let's see, 3:26. I've got 22 people viewing or listening, one of the two. And if you want to be part of the broadcast, down at the bottom of the screen here is my email. So if you send me an email to joedaysgarage@gmail.com, I can get you on, send you a link and get you on the broadcast. And you can talk about your project. I don't know if Robert Adams was going to check in. I know he had emailed me earlier today that he was doing some stuff on his Mustang and had other stuff going on. So I don't know if he wants to join in or not, but if he wants, that's fine. And then if you haven't been checking out Grease Rookie Garage, there is, he finally got his quarter panel cut off. So if you've been following Andrew along, he finally got his quarter panel cut off, and I know he's looking forward to getting that straightened out and getting the quarter and wheelhouse back on. So anyway, what else was there I was going to mention? Oh, I got those aprons in place, or those panels in place on the Brooklyn Pony for where the shock towers should have been. But of course, this car doesn't have shock towers because I built it without them, because we did the TCI suspension. Well, the panels, once, of course, modification, adapt and overcome, make them fit. Well, I had a comment or an email from a gentleman. Let me see who it was. Peter Davies. I think he's been on this channel, on this live stream before. He had sent me a message that he discovered with the same panels, because it overlaps the top of the apron, that it was interfering with the fender fitment. So that may be something else I need to look at as things go on, that I may have to trim that, trim off that edge, or about that much of the panel, so that the fender doesn't sit on it. But I'll have to see how that fits and how it's going to interact before I do any modifications. Dave, just saw your message and reply. By the way, what was the rare car you were talking about earlier? I heard all the details, but not make, model of the car. It was a 1957 Thunderbird Phase 1. And, I never heard of them before. You hear, Thunderbird, of course, we recognize the name, and I don't know if there was a Phase 2, I don't know, but there was they were called Phase 1 Thunderbirds, and they only made 15 of them, and 8 left in the world. So just one of those oddball kind of things. Like I said, you can learn something all the time. And, it's just like the Mustang stuff. There's always, I don't know, it seems like there's always some oddball Mustang that comes out of nowhere. You look at the designs that they had and the models they come out with, like, say, the Hearst, the rarity of the Hearst rental cars you could get. And then you go into the Shelby stuff, and you go into, the Twister Mustangs, and there was a whole bunch of other ones that were like, almost like whenever, Chevy had the Yanko stuff and the different things like that. They did similar stuff with Mustangs, and it always seems like there's some odd thing that comes out once in a while with some weird Mustang, and it's like, wow, I've never heard of that one before. And I don't know if there's a data sheet or some list that says these are all the oddball Mustangs that were produced from various companies, or modified through various companies over the years. And if you find one, don't tell anybody and save it, kind of thing. But Paul, off-topic question: how big is your garage shop? Well, the shop is 24 feet wide, 36 feet deep. That's the main shop. So whenever I built this, the limitation was it had to be under 900 square feet. So I could have gone a little bit bigger to stretch out, to the actual 900, but from a construction sense, trying to keep within, 4-foot panels or a 2-foot increment on the overlap on the ends. So 24 by 36 is the main shop. Now, when I had the concrete poured, the 24 by 36, I had them pour, there's a 6-inch tall curb around the whole perimeter of the shop. The point of that being, if you wanted to hose this out, spray it down, you could do it without getting your walls wet or any of the base of the wall. So you could hose out the whole interior of the shop if you wanted to. I also had 14 extra feet poured on the back of the shop. So again, 24 wide, but technically it's not 36 feet deep, it's 50 feet deep, because that back section is where I have it set up kind of as a paint booth. So the paint booth area is, you would have to turn perpendicular, let's say, 14 feet wide by 24 feet deep because of the side entry door. So it's a good size shop. It could always be bigger. We always want a bigger shop, but ultimately I think the bigger your shop is, just the more stuff you put into it, right? The more stuff you collect and get in your way and fight with. And that's, even now, there's still stuff in here I want to get rid of, but eventually. I'll have to look it up. For a minute, I thought you were talking about the 57 Chevy El Morocco. See, Nani, I've never even heard of that. 57 Chevy El Morocco. I don't know what that is. So now that somebody has some homework to do from Dave, is to look up 57 Chevy El Morocco and figure out what that is. Joel, I'm working on a 68 C10 400 small block. What do you like about using a 400 trans? What do you like about using a 400 trans in it with 373 gears? That's kind of confusing. Are you saying, what do you think about? Maybe you're asking, what do you think about using a 400 trans with 373 gears? Well, that's up to you, man. I can just tell you that either way, with a turbo 400, 373 gears, you're going to be hitting a gas station a lot. That's pretty much it. Depending on what you're going to use the truck for, the difficulty with any of those old 3-speed transmissions is you did not get fuel mileage out of them at all. And if that's not a concern, then fine, no issue. I always like the idea of having something with an extra gear just to get, cruising speed, be comfortable, and keep your RPMs down on the engine and stuff like that. But there's nothing wrong with it. That's a great combination. That's a great combination. But again, and of course, I'm sure you're not going to use it as a daily driver. I'm assuming you're going to probably do cruise-ins and stuff like that. So it may not be that big a deal. Sammy painted the O2 Mustang bumper. It's tough to get the shine right. Would you suggest a cutting and polishing compound? That's a good question. I've used, I can't think of let me see. Hold on a second. I have some products that I've used. I'm just going to grab a couple of them, but all in the 3M family. I've got 3M 36060, 36064, and I've had like 4 or 5 bottles of varying levels of abrasiveness, but that's all I can really tell you. That is not one of my strong points, is doing that. I can do it. I can make it look good. I can't point to that and say, this is your best product. And generally, like for me, I've got a foam pad, I've got a wool pad. I have actually 2 foam pads, a wool pad. But being as I don't do it all the time, I actually have a note sheet written out, gives me some data that I can use as a reference point for, what process I need to use to get the best look. But that's just all stuff I've learned from other people, and just kind of keep a little running tab of information for myself, because, like I said, I don't do it. I probably don't, maybe once a year, maybe once every couple years. So it's about the best I can tell you. Sorry. I do know that I have one of the, I have a variable speed buffer, which is very handy. And I've looked into getting, I know Milwaukee sells one now that is cordless, which would be fantastic, because having that cord out there is no fun. You're chasing it around the car all the time. So, Cooter, checking in between Zoom meetings for work. Haven't hit the retire to my shop goal yet. Congrats on 1 month for you. Well, thank you, Cooter. It has been 1 month. The dogs are looking at me all the time like, well, you're just sitting around doing nothing. Take me outside, And of course, we won't talk about the cats. Not a cat guy. What is your opinion on resto mods? Well, there's a place for them. I'm not against them. You'll have people that are purists that want the exact engine, transmission, brakes, all those things that were put on a car in the 60s, whatever year you want to go to, 50s, 60s. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, there's also a distinct advantage to having a car that can stop or turn or accelerate easily or start without having to pump the gas 100 times. So there's a lot of things that, just because they made a car that way in that era, doesn't, and it depends on the car too. To me, it doesn't have to stay that way. There are advantages to having modern technology in your vehicles. That's why I built the Frankentruck. The 68 GMC that I have, that's on a 2006 Chevy 2500 HD chassis. I can jump in that truck any day of the week, hit the key, drop it in gear, and I'm gone. I've got overdrive transmission. I've got a 6-liter fuel-injected engine. I've got the deceleration function on the trailer towing package, so the engine will actually slow down the load I'm pulling. I've got 4-wheel disc brakes, power steering, everything that a modern truck would have, but in an old cab. So, there's, like I said, there's a place for everything. And I'm, again, not against doing the resto mods. Now, however, I'd be more against it if it was a rare combination of a car or a pristine original. Then I get a little more, I wish you wouldn't have done that. But something that's been modified already, or rusted out, or doesn't have all its original components anyway, build it. So, Dave, the El Morocco was a outfitter who was working with GM in late 56 and into 57 on an upscale Chrysler or Chevrolet line. In short, they were grafting Cadillac quarters, trim, and interiors onto Bel Air ragtops. That sounds interesting. That's the first I've heard of that, but that sounds rather interesting. Sammy Alicia Smith, that is solid. I don't do it all the time. I will try that. Okay, yeah, for the compounds and make notes. That's one of the things. Certain things, it pays to make notes for doing processes. Just like I said before, you're test fitting panels or whatever. I write down stuff like I have a drawing of the bolts and hardware that are going to go back into the Mustang for the TCI suspension, because I had to modify a bunch of stuff and put in different length bolts. So I made a little roadmap so that I can go, okay, this is the 4.5, this is the 4-inch, and I can just put them back where they came from. So it's always neat, a neat way to keep track of stuff. Just have a notebook or something and go page by page. A lot of the stuff I keep in my head just because it's, I've done it for so long, but certain things I want to keep track of because I don't do it often enough. So anyway, Dustin Harms, yeah. Very new to this, but about to get a 66 coupe from my buddy. Very clean car for being a California Mustang. For a newbie, what type of Bondo would you recommend for the few areas I needed? I'm going to tell you to use Evercoat Rage Ultra. Evercoat Rage Ultra. There's also Rage Gold, Rage itself. I use Rage Ultra, and I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it. So, and I'll point out, if you're going to order, I'll just say this: if you're going to order some of that, do it through my Amazon page. I have that body filler. I hate the word Bondo. I hate the word Bondo because that is a manufacturing brand that I would not use for anything. But if you go to my Amazon page, I have a page dedicated to products that I use and frequently and endorse. So, and if you go through the Amazon page, you can also, by you ordering something from there, going through my link, I get a little percentage of that. So, anyway, Rage Ultra. Dave, Moroccos were available through dealers if you knew what to ask for, but they cost more than a real caddy. Bad business model. Less than 10 produced? Wonder how many of those still exist. That sounds like a rare car, but is it worth having? It's one of those kind of things, just doesn't have the appeal of a Phase 1 57 Thunderbird that was built just for speed records. So, Earl Smithson, hi Barry, really enjoyed yesterday's vid. Was wondering why you just didn't fill the shock tower. Well, I guess that's a valid question. I guess it wasn't considered. And at this point, the panels that came with the TCI kit, it's already laid out for that, designed for that. And I think if we were to try to improvise, it wouldn't look as good as people would think. And I say that because the panels that are on there are designed to overlap the apron or aprons. It would take a ton of work to cut out that shape and weld that piece in fully, fill up all the drill holes, and try to smooth everything out. And I don't think it would look nearly as good as what people may think. Now, they do sell panels, or I've seen panels that are more complete. Like it's a flat panel without the cutout in it. But that wasn't considered at the time. And so I don't plan to go backwards. I'm just going to use those. I think they'll look fine, especially with the button head bolts. I think it kind of gives it a kind of a cool rivet look to it. And that's the way it's going to be. So, but it could be an option. If somebody else were doing one, they could order panels that are flat all the way through and go with those. So good question. Greetings from Norway. Well, I'm glad you're here, Stein. Paul, never used Bondo brand body filler. It's a BE to work with. Yeah. Well, and it also, because it's cheap, just say that, it's a cheap product. It absorbs moisture. And a lot of people don't realize that. Now, I know it was really bad back in the, probably 70s and 80s, and you'd have problems with it, but it's not nearly as good as the Rage products. So I won't. The only thing I think I've used from Bondo is, and it's been a long time, I think I should use short strand fiberglass or tiger hair body filler from them, but I just use a Rage Ultra. Oh, I've got another gnat flying around. Time for another gnat SWAT fest. Great. Okay. Brian using Rage Extreme using now. Yes. And Dustin definitely will do that. Thank you. You're welcome, Dustin. And, if you're on my channel, you go to my main page up on a banner, up on the top, on the side, there's a link to the Amazon page. So you can just click on that. That's something I've been looking into with stuff that I'm doing, not necessarily. Amazon opens up a wide market, tremendously wide market for products and stuff, just stuff. And I'll point this out. I talked about this last week or the week before. This is an old LED bulb that I bought, I don't know how long ago. And I mentioned this because this bulb, probably when I bought it, I'll bet you it was $12 by itself, because these things, they weren't going cheap when they first come out. And I've taken this apart to a point where you can see I know it's hard to see, but there's a bunch of LED or the diodes are in there. And maybe you can see it with the light off of it a little bit. Anyway, but I needed to replace really just one bulb that was out in the house, but there's always going to be more bulbs needed. Well, I go to Amazon and I look up, I think I just ate that gnat. Protein. I look up these, a bulb, LED bulb, and I was able to get, I think, 12 equivalent bulbs for like $16. So you do the math, you're like, well, this original bulb was like $12 by itself, and now the bulbs, they worked out to be like $1.39 a piece or something like that. So imagine that difference. But I guess what I'm alluding to is the stuff that's available on Amazon. Recently, I was looking up saw blades, because I have an old fibrous chop saw, the fibrous disc that I used in many videos to cut stuff with. And I like it, but I hate it because of all the fiber junk that it kicks up in the air, and you got to wear a mask or have airflow. And I've used in the past at my former regular job, a chop saw that had a steel cutting blade in it. Fantastic. It cut beautifully, nice and straight. So I've been looking at either upgrading the saw to a metal cutting saw, or two, just buying a metal cutting blade that'll fit my chop saw. Well, the chop saw it's old. I've had that chop saw since probably 93, something like that. Still plugs away. You see it in my videos, thing runs, and I can't justify getting rid of it. But a new metal cutting chop saw, they can run $300-400. And I thought, why are they charging so much for just a motor that spins a wheel? It's not that complicated. Well, in my research, as limited as it may have been, I looked up metal cutting discs. Well, of course, when you start searching for something on Amazon, it connects dots. It starts saying, if you're looking for this, most people bought this, and this type of thing. So I looked up a Diablo metal cutting blade, and I was reading reviews on it, and I think it's a 12-inch, which is what I need, I believe, for my saw. And the comments came in pretty quick that said, you can't run this at full speed because it'll warp the metal or it'll ruin the blade. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe there's something I'm not noticing here. And somebody commented that with the blade they ordered, they also they said attached a link to another Amazon product, a fan control switch. And he said you have to slow the speed on the saw so that you don't ruin the metal or ruin a blade. And I was like, oh, well, see, there's something I didn't think about, because the one I had used was purpose built for cutting metal as a chop saw. So I'm already looking into it with the idea that if I get word of the disc, I'll order that fan control switch. And the fan control switch was cool because you had a high, low, and then you had a variable in between where you can control the speed. And I think that's a cool idea. And then I started thinking about it even more because, as I mentioned, I think previously, I don't know if on this stream or, the Monday night stream, I'm looking at building or modifying my paint booth into a pressurized booth. And I've mentioned before, I already have holes cut in the wall at the bottom of the wall for fans to go in. Well, I didn't think about this very much, other than if you have a fan blowing in, typically you have a couple of controls, high, low, medium, whatever. But I was thinking, that fan control switch that I was just looking at, I can incorporate that into those fans to try to regulate the speed to get a comfortable pressure inside the booth. So there's a lot of little things that you can learn as you're going along and pick up information. But anyway, along with that, I was also looking at I'll say this. We had an industrial belt sander at work that I really, really liked. It was mounted to a ball door big motor, and it had an arm like about this 3 feet, maybe somewhere around that length, 2.5, 3 feet, that attached to the end of the ball door motor that you could pivot it up and make it like a vertical belt sander. You could bring it down, and have an angle, whatever. So I've been looking at one of those for a while now, or that design, because the one that we had at work was like several $1,000s. And one of those popped up on Amazon. So I've been looking at one of those too. And I'm like, oh man, that's kind of cool. And then you read the reviews and they're like, yeah, it's a great tool if you modify everything. You know what I mean? So that kind of gets frustrating when you get into stuff like that. But anyway, let me see here. Got Boondocker checking in. Glad you're here. Brian, works great if you sand shortly after it hardens up, but let it set overnight and it gubs up sandpaper like epoxy primer for some reason. Yeah, you're talking about the body filler. And I'm assuming you mean the Bondo stuff, I guess. Are you talking about the short strand? Yeah. Cuz checking in. Rick Stevenson checking in. And Stein, you have 42,500 fans. I do. Thank you. Yeah. And it's growing just like the other channel. The other channel's growing as well. So, and it's all people, helping out like this, watching this stuff. I can't read that. I can't see that, Sammy Lisa Smith. Put the something in the light. Camera? In the light. Oh, put the camera in. No, you're talking about put a camera in here? No. Oh, Brian. No, he's saying Rage Extreme. Oh, okay. Well, Brian, have you tried the trick where you wipe it down with lacquer thinner? Have you tried that to see if that cures the tackiness? You may, because I've done that many times. I'll have the filler, and it'll act kind of. It almost feels kind of like your hand would stick to it a little bit. And I've taken lacquer thinner on a towel and wiped it down, and it removes the top layer of whatever. Give it a few minutes, and then it seems to be sandable at that point. So you may want to look at that as an option if you haven't already. Oh, okay. So Stein, you were talking about installing a fan, but you have 42,500 fans. Yeah. 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 And that number, it's growing. It's weird because back in March, things were really, they were going like this on all the charts, going like this. And then the virus kicks in and it quickly went like this. So in the past, I was gaining about 1,100 subscribers a month, somewhere in there, and now it's around 800. The number, has dropped off. The views have dropped some. Of course, the revenue went down with all that, but it's starting to level out again. It's not necessarily climbing so much as just trying to kind of staying level. I am gaining subscribers, and that helps. The more important thing is the views and the length of the time people watch, stuff like that. That's really what YouTube looks at, is how much time people watch things. And then, of course, responses and comments and thumbs up and all that stuff. So, yeah, if you haven't thrown a thumbs up on this video yet, by all means, please do. Because, YouTube has all kinds of algorithms that they use to determine if a video is popular. And then if it's popular, they push it out even more to try to get certain stuff going. Now, if you're a subscriber with 1 million viewers, they could put out anything and it's going to be popular, or 1 million subscribers, let's say. So it really doesn't matter. But again, I'm still a small fish in a big pond. So Randy, the thinner is a great way to get it sandable quicker. Yep. Yeah, whatever it does to it, I don't know exactly, but it does help to make it sandable. Here's something I want to address, minor thing as far as things go, but I was recently looking at a Facebook page where somebody's shop had caught on fire and burned, and it's always sad to see stuff like that happen. But according to the article, the cause of the fire was a DeWalt battery pack on the charger. Now, I don't know if it was an original setup. I don't know if it was an original battery. I don't know the parameters, but apparently the battery charger overheated, caught on fire, and caught the garage on fire. So just a PSA at this point. Don't leave batteries on charge. Get them charged, get them off, and they should be fine. But just something to think about. I think we all become numb to the idea anymore of trusting technology. And yeah, I'll put that battery in the charger and I'll leave for the week. And anyway, then you could run into a problem where your shop is burned down. Paul, how did you get into making YouTube videos? Well, Paul, that's a good question. And the answer is, I started, initially, and this is kind of funny, the very first video I did was just goofing around, had nothing to do with anything. It's a really ridiculous video, but that was the first video I made. I think there's a couple others like that. But the idea was initially, as the growth of YouTube, when we had the body shop, I was trying to find ways to promote what we do and show people the work that we do, and to show the potential that we could do. And I started filming projects that I was working on and just kind of giving updates. And really it was, people could watch the video and go, oh, that's my car, and they'd tell their friend, and they say, oh, he does that kind of work. Well, I want to see him, do that kind of work on my car too. So it was kind of a business approach to getting customers for the body shop. From there, it grew to somewhat into the how-to process that I was doing. So if you go back and you look at earlier videos, 2012 and 13, I was kind of doing how-to videos, but not real detailed how-to videos. So I might say, I'm gonna weld up a patch for this car, and then I might show some of the patch, and then boom, I put it on the car, and this is what I've done. And I that's how I kind of would approach things. So from there, as time went on, I realized more and more that people they wanted more information. They wanted more instruction, more details. And so probably just prior, 2013, that transition kind of kicked in with Jade. So whenever I was building the first videos on Jade, when I put in the torque boxes, that was like the week after I left the body shop. I left the body shop, and I was like, I have something. I want to do things. So that's where it started into the trend that I have now, where I try to give more detail and attention to detail and stuff like that. So anyway, that's how it's progressed. And then again, as time went on, people would ask, like I would do, like my more popular videos are more about maintenance, doing brake jobs, doing actual body work, or changing serpentine belts or whatever. And people would ask me, I'd say, okay, you're going to remove the caliper, and I would take the caliper off, and then I would say, remove the brake pads, and I'd, whatever. And they would say, wait a minute, what size is the bolt? Which way do you turn it? Oh, okay. So then I started thinking more of the aspect of, let's make it like an instructional video so that people can do it themselves. And that's really kind of how that has gone on. So hope that's not too long of an answer, but that's basically the answer. Jeff, where did you go? Did you have to make dinner again? Because I didn't know you were gone. I don't get a signal when you leave. Let's see. Sean, thanks for all the great Mustang videos, Barry. I continue to reference your awesome videos as I restore my 67 Stang. You get a bell for that, Sean. Thank you. Boondocker, I have a rule that I can't leave the garage for about 30 minutes after welding just to be extra safe. I agree with that. I do the same thing. I'll weld something, and then I wait. I'll walk around the shop, sweep up, whatever, sniff the air. Do I smell anything hot? We go around and touch certain, just because. Stein, well, there's no link. It's just the first video. I don't even know how you search the videos. But it's still there. It's still there. Let's see. Leonard, late getting into show. How's all? Glad you're here, Leonard. Scott, how's the TIG welding coming along? Have you been practicing any? No, I have not. I have not. Every time I think about it, I'm already into something else. I'm like, I could have maybe used a TIG for that. So I have not done much with it, but it's there just in case. Ricard checking in from Sweden. Glad you're here, Ricard. Donald Rice checking in from Jeanette, Pennsylvania. Glad you're here. Okay, let's see. Jeff, I just journeyed back from hospital to home and then cooked the dinner. Well, yeah, but it's a pretty late dinner you're having. It's got to be late. I know it's late. Not as late as on Mondays, but Thomas Yaksich, glad you're here. Marshall, learned the waiting after welding lesson the hard way many years ago. Yes. Yeah. Because 1 hour is my rule, then check back. We have the same rule at work, so I use that. That's not a bad rule at all. I'll check around, and then I'll even go, I may go in the house after half hour or something. I'll come back out. I may be walking my dogs. I'll open the door, turn the lights on, double check. You can't be too safe when it comes to that stuff. Boondocker, I sometimes turn off the lights and look around. Yes. Yep. I mean, I've only had, knock on wood, one instance of catching a car on fire that I can recall. Unfortunately, it was a 69 Camaro that was already painted and done. And the guy, I've talked about this before, the guy, he wanted me to put in the he needed the bracing replaced on the bottom of the floor pan that holds the gas tank. So you have the brackets that are welded to the floor pan and then the strap that goes underneath. Well, those needed to be replaced. And I put up cardboard in the back of the car, and of course the gas tank was out and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, I did some welding, and all of a sudden I saw smoke coming out from behind the cardboard, and I panicked, man. I panicked. Yanked out that cardboard, grabbed a fire extinguisher, hosed that thing down. I think I grabbed spray bottles and was spraying water in there, soaking it down. And then as quickly as I could, I unbolted that back seat, got it out of the car. And even after I'd sprayed the extinguisher and water on it, I unbolted it, got it out of there, and it was still smoking. So that was not a good day. But thankfully, the guy was not upset because it didn't like burn up the seat or anything. He just started, burning up the insulation junk, and he didn't want me to. I was going to take the seat out of a Camaro that I had that was in perfect condition. I said, I'll swap it. He said, nope, it's good. Leave it alone. It's covered up with a panel. I was like, okay, it's up to you. Because we have had some pretty bad fires at work because of welding. Yeah. Yep. It can happen. Car guy Troy, could I bug you for a measurement? Not now, but maybe email you. Have a possible issue my 6.7 convert in the front. Sure. Send me an email. I'll see what I can come up with. I've had a good bit of that lately. Marshall, and the extinguishers make a darn mess too, as if you don't have enough to clean up after fire. Yeah, definitely. Jerry, that story is why I fabricated a metal panel behind the rear seat. Yep, I'm with you on that. Paul, one day my Mustang wouldn't start, so I had a friend spray brake cleaner in the carburetor, and boom, the carburetor caught fire. Fire luckily went out on itself after a few seconds. Brake cleaner? I've never tried brake cleaner. Yeah, normally if you get an engine fire like that, carburetor fire, you're better off to keep cranking. Suck it down into the engine. Try to get all the fumes down through the engine. That way you don't have to chase it on the outside. Fiberglass blankets from Harbor Freight work great. I haven't looked at those. I know when at the body shop we had these. I don't forget what the name of it was, but it was like almost acted like a felt blanket, but it was a fire blanket that you could lay over a fender or whatever, and it would stop, burning embers or burning, sparks. And we use those all the time at the shop. And I've never bought a blanket for here. I don't know why. I have used occasionally. I have some kind of a canvas thing blanket, and that works pretty well depending on where or where and what I'm working on. But yeah, fires are bad. I think back to when I was a kid. My dad was, he was a heavy construction carpenter, had the junkyard. He could weld anything with a stick welder, and used to build all kinds of crazy stuff just to see if he could do it. And I remember one day, and this is back in the 70s when I was a kid. I may have been probably 8 or 9 years old, maybe. And my dad was underneath a car, and he was welding something. I don't know what, exhaust. I don't know. And I'm in there watching him, and I noticed that his pants caught on fire. And I was like, Dad. Finally, he says, what? I said, your pants are on fire. What? And he comes, getting out from under the car, and at that time we used to keep I think we had a refrigerator somewhere in the garage, and we used to keep jugs of water, old milk jugs, just for us to drink. We'd have water, ready to drink. And so I think he grabbed one of those jugs and just splashed it all over his leg and put the fire out. And I guess this counts as a junkyard story for Boondocker. But anyway, he put water all over his pants, whatever, put his fire out, and then just yelled at me. Just chewed me out. And I was, what? And he said he was mad because apparently I didn't just grab the jug and dump it on him. Now, let's back up a second and think about that. Here's, kid 8 or 9 years old who has enough common sense to say, hey, Dad, your pants are on fire. But he wanted me to just take a cold half gallon or gallon of water and dump it on him while he's underneath a car trying to weld. I don't think that would have worked out very well. I think that would have been very ugly. So I did what I felt was right in letting him know that he was on fire. And I was still wrong. Marshall, it's been our experience that those blankets are fire retardant, not fireproof. They will still burn, but certainly better to use than nothing. Yes. And they're also good. Like I used to throw them over windshields and stuff in particular. If we didn't pull the glass out of a car, we could layer those over the windshield just as a precaution to keep, keep the windshield from getting burn damage, Car Guy Troy, thanks. Will do. Appreciate it. Fiberglass blankets from Harbor Freight are great. I spray my floor down with water when I'm done welding, not just to make myself feel better. Yeah, well, that's a good idea. I guess I'll have to look into those blankets. I don't know if I've seen those. Are they labeled as fire blankets, or what's the term for them? I guess I could just Google it, but I have not seen those at Harbor Freight. I guess I'm maybe not looking. Boondocker, junkyard story, always time well spent. Yeah. Well, come on, Bill. There we go. Barry, there's a moral in your dad's story. Yeah. Well, don't catch yourself on fire. The moral of the story is you're always wrong, no matter what you do. Stein, I tried welding without the helmet last week, just held the gun so it covered the brightest light. No issues with my eyes, but I got a little tan on my face, and next time I'll use a balaclava. Balaclava. That was a word. That was like the word for last week, wasn't it? Balaclava. Okay, so Jerry is saying welding blankets. Marshall, I think most places sell them as welding blankets. Okay, well, I maybe I haven't looked or noticed them at my Harbor Freight. I don't know if I just haven't paid attention. I guess they would have them probably on the welding aisle, but I have not looked. Oh, they have moving blankets. Used to get them free. Yeah. Well, the moving blankets, I've used those. That's what I've used to insulate my door. In the wintertime, I put those moving blankets up on the door with magnets, and it helps keep the door, the cold from transferring so easily. Jeff, Barry, your dad's story seems a classic example of you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. Yeah, and that was pretty common. That was always the response, you couldn't win. Never. Boondocker, Christmas time, you can sit down by a fireplace. I just tell junkyard stories. Maybe that's what I need to do. I could do that with a, there's an option on this program, and I don't know if I could change it or not. Let's see if it would let me do it. I'll just see if it'll happen. There's a thing on this StreamYard that if I go to, okay, you can see me there. I can go to green screen. Now, this isn't, there's no green screen, obviously, but you can get this kind of background, right? And you'll see if I put up, I could put up a green panel, and then I could just sit in the comfortable living room and talk about Christmas stories, or I could have a brick wall. There's a brick wall, and just tell Christmas stories, right? Or junkyard stories at Christmas time. We could make it a whole new a whole new event every Christmas. It's a great idea, Boondocker. I like it. Jerry says they are in the welding aisle, so I'll have to check that out. Jeff, always wrong. That is the short answer. Well, yeah, that was a very common answer for me and my brother. Leonard, Ford made two 57 Rancheros with superchargers, and both were restored, and the guy restored them won't drive them on the street. Well, I don't blame him. I really don't. There's pages that I follow I see on Facebook all the time where it's wrecked classics and muscle cars, and it makes me nervous every time. Is my camera out of focus? Looks like it's out of focus. Can I get it back in focus? I have to trick it, I think. I have to trick it, make it find something it can focus on. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm feeling blurry right now. Fireside chats with J Daddy's Garage. Yeah. Well, if you wanted to, I could like do, poetry recitals and stuff like that, or talk about songs that I wrote, stuff like that. That would be a really good inspirational hour of communicating. Or short stories that I've written. I could just read short stories that I've written. That would always be fun. Paul. Let's see. I always wanted to ask, but does the owner of Brooklyn Pony have any special connection with the car? Why didn't he buy a car in better condition? Well, I think he bought this car, from what he told me, like he's had it for over 20 years, and he's always just dreamed about this car being back on the road. So this is part of the process. And the thing is, you could buy another car. Better condition is debatable. You never know what you're going to get. With this car, you know exactly what you're going to get when it's all over. When it's finished. War Wagon. You're saying pass on the stories and poems. Yeah, let's not carry it away. Read to us from a shop manual. I have several. I could read several of those. Stein, did you write songs? Why can't we hear you perform one of them? I've written a few songs, but they've been performed, but nothing I'm going to put on YouTube. Just different things that I've done. So, Jeff Barry feeling blurry. I'll remember that remark. I think it comes with both age and retirement. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's. I feel like the camera is slightly out of focus still, and I don't know why. It could be me. It could be me just slightly out of focus. Could be me. All right. War Wagon, he's saying, yep, shop manual. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's interesting. There are videos out there, let's say, that are maybe just more audible. There's no actual visuals, that are people who have read segments of short stories that I think sometimes it's really cool to have that, hear somebody read something with voice inflection or, a different accent or something like that. It doesn't have to be, what is it, like Quoth the Raven, nevermore, the whole story thing. And I've thought about experimenting with that at some point, but I don't know if I ever will. Might be interesting just to read a story and just put it out there, But if I do that, it'll probably be on a whole nother channel, because it won't be on this channel, and it won't be on probably on the workshop channel. But anyway, War Wagon, have you done your video on Brooklyn 3-point seatbelts? Not yet. Not yet. That's in the works one of these days. So, Mike, no, the lens should be clean. I haven't done anything with it. So I don't know if it's, maybe it's the lighting. Maybe it's the light that I have up there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Thanks for the answers, Barry. I need to go to the parts store. Have a nice afternoon. Oh, thank you, Sammy. And Sammy, Lisa. You're welcome. War Wagon, I suck at reading aloud. Well, what I found interesting, and on my other channel, the Joe Daddy's Workshop channel, I have, let me see if I can get that. I have done the it was a video on editing. And what I did is I used the same microphone that I'm using right now, and I could show what I was editing on my screen with that program. And as I was I was talking about what I was doing. It was very similar to when I'm working or doing the video on a car, because I'll talk about things and I'll try to explain things and try to, create in some aspect a visual reference as I'm doing these things. But as I was doing that, I thought, well, this could be interesting, just to read a story or a short story or whatever, and just another thing, just another thing that could be approached. And there's people that they like that. Like right now, there's people that are listening, I assume, that are listening to this rather than watching it, because they want to hear information. They want to hear people, I'm the only one talking, but obviously there's people involved, and I read the question just for that purpose, so that if somebody is listening, they know what I'm trying to answer. And there's a lot of people that have told me that they just want to tune in to hear what I have to say or what the subject matter is. So, and again, not that I've said it before. I have a great face for radio. So some people say that they can tolerate me talking and hear what I have to say. But I haven't had any real complaints about, me talking and whatever, rambling. So anyway, Jeff Reynolds, Barry, I'm wearing my headphones as I'm cooking, but I'm taking a break with my car on fire story. Okay. War Wagon, old and fuzzy. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So Stein is saying it's crystal clear. Well, that's good. Boondocker, Exaberry, look at how many people already tune in to hear you talk. Yeah. That's interesting, because as the number continues, with the growth of the channel and people tuning in to the live streams, because I didn't start doing these live streams till I think March or something, and I was doing them on Monday nights. But now that I've did this Thursday thing, well, I'll say this: on Monday night, this number, which I'm sure I guess you can see that, I don't know, but that number we're at 37 people right now listening. That number actually hit 75, and to me, that's a pretty good number. And the nice part about it is, there's people that have been watching. Like, here's an example here: War Wagon. I don't remember seeing that name before. He may have been on here before, but I don't remember seeing it before. But that's somebody who may have just joined us and not had much input, but I keep seeing new names kind of pop up. I have had a few oddball, some comments and stuff that has popped up that I've had to quickly block them off and get rid of them. But for the most part, the people that come on, have great questions, great responses, help each other out, answering questions and different things like that. But you're right. People they're tuning in to hear this. All right. Jorge is checking in from New Jersey. Your hat's on the way. I'm assuming that's a question mark. They should be. The hats that the new ones, the samples have been ordered, and they should be coming probably next week, I assume. So once those samples show up, and I'm happy with those, I'm going to do a bulk order of like 60, and I'm going to do a variety of different colors. I think 5 different colors. And so once that happens, then I will be able to offer up hats again. So hopefully those get here soon. Good question now, Jorge. Thank you. Jeff, being a bit older, my welding was always oxyacetylene, often used to replace rocker panels. One time I saw the smoke rising from inside the car. The only water source I had at that time was okay. Well, I assume you had enough capacity to put out the fire. War Wagon, this is why I don't make videos aside from being video challenged. Your vids have great explanation to what you're doing. Thanks. Well, thank you, War Wagon. Appreciate that. Let's see. Whoop, and he says no. Sub for a long time, just really watch your vids. Well, thank you. I'm glad you've been here a long time. Brian W. was listening and sanding at the same time, got messed up on the welding blanket thing, thought it was about fender covers. Oh, no. Actually, welding blankets. Insulation to protect paint and not have fires. Jeff, the bucket that I rinsed my hands in after using hand cleaner, the problem was that I'd not changed the water in a few weeks. I had to get the fire out, but it was tough to explain the smell afterwards. Well, I'll bet. In fact, here's another comment. Junkyard story. Brief junkyard story. Let me get that up there for Boondocker, right? This is a secondary junkyard story time. And again, this is nothing specific except when Jeff was commenting about the bucket that he used or he rinsed his hands in. We used to keep and this is just something we did for some reason, but we would have to we would keep a bucket outside the garage it was just a bucket of water. Now, we had this old farmhouse we lived in. It had a well that was our feed, and this well, we actually had an old pump handle on it. You could pump out water. So we would fill up that bucket in the morning and then go set it over by the garage, and it was Gojo. Yeah, we had that, had lanolin in it or whatever. We had that big tub of Gojo. And so we'd be all covered in grease and grit and grime and scrub down with Gojo and rinse out in that bucket. And it just made me think of that whenever Jeff brought that up, because in the mornings, that bucket would be like ice cold. So, you kind of waited for the sun to warm it up. But in the wintertime, that wasn't really that good of an option. So you had to be more cautious with how you were getting dirty, so you didn't have to deal with the bucket. So anyway, that's another brief little junkyard story time. So let's see. Boondocker. I tune in for Barry, and the type of person you seem to be 10 times more than for Mustang specific stuff. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Jeff Reynolds, back to the cooking. Yeah. Not sure what I'm going to have tonight, but I was, every time I do this on Thursdays, I start thinking about what's going to be for supper, or what, kind because Jeff's always cooking about this time. Kim Kiranicki, hi from Cornwall, England. Your live streams are always thoroughly enjoyable. Well done. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Randy, what do you use for sealer before painting? That's a good question. It really depends on what you're doing. I have used sealer before as a once over, for getting a smooth color match all the way across. And I used PPG products. So I don't even know what the number is on it, but I've used PPG sealer. And there are instances where you need it, I'll say, in my opinion, you don't. Some people want to have sealer on top of everything that they're painting. Others don't, because you can go to the 2K primer. That's what I'm using as the all over for the car. So typically I won't use a sealer unless I have a specific reason to. And then, but at that point I will use PPG products in that instance. But at this point, like the Jade Mustang, I've been, or I have it in 2K high build primer, the bulk of it. I did post some pictures recently on Instagram where I had stripped the underside of the deck lid, sprayed it with epoxy. I did a little more body work on the passenger side door, I think it was. And anyway, put them in epoxy and then let them sit for a couple days, and then follow it up with 2K high build. Now from there, I'm not going to put a sealer on that car. It's going to go, the 2K high build will be the final, final covering, let's say, before I go to base coat. So anyway, good question though. War Wagon, do you prefer acrylic enamel over that crummy water-based junk? Well, I use base coat, clear coat. So I haven't used the water-based product. Actually, I've heard really good things about water-based products. So it just takes more effort, let's say, because you have to get the water to evaporate. So, eventually I think we're all going to be forced into the water-based stuff eventually. I know all the big shops are doing that now. They're getting away from standard paint and going to the waterborne. But I have not used it. I have not tried it, but I've heard good things. But at this point, I use your standard base coat, clear coat. Boondocker, listen, I love the automotive stuff, but there are hundreds of others. I appreciate your demeanor and attitude. Well, thank you. I try to keep a positive attitude and try to keep people, in the mix. Try to get people interested in being here and participating. Okay. And yeah. Sorry, got distracted there. Jorge sent me an email. Randy, I've heard you should, and I've heard you don't have to. Then I have heard to use epoxy or to use 2K, one of those confusing things in auto body repair. And I've heard the same type of thing. I can tell you this. At the body shop, when we did, collision repair work, we went from repairs to 2K to base coat, clear coat. All right. The only variance we used in that instance was whether the paint chip for that particular car, whether it had a different color undertone. That would determine which color primer we would use so that we could get the color to match better. Because, the primer could be a light gray, medium, or dark, and that would affect the outcome of the paint on the final product. So we would try to, match everything with the paint chip, what it called for. We never went with sealer in between. Just it didn't need to. When we talked to PPG, they were like, you don't need sealer. You can just use 2K. But I have seen people take and spray a car with epoxy. After they do all the primer work, they come back and put a thin coat of epoxy on. I've seen people put a sealer on. And it does get confusing. I agree. But for my instance, I prefer not to use a sealer. I just don't, unless I'm trying to do a complete uniform color over the whole car. So if I had, black panels and gray panels, I might try to do a sealer to make a uniform color. But anyway, yeah, it does get confusing. Warwagon, I don't like it. Not very durable. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I don't know for sure because I haven't researched it. Back when I got out of the body shop, a lot of places were going to the waterborne products, and I have not researched it very hard. I know you have to have like specific fans within a paint booth to blow to remove the residual water and stuff like that. But I have not really followed it up because odds are I'll never do it. But that's about all I know on that. Better go pick up some wildflowers in the yard for your cooks. You might even make dessert. Yeah. Yeah, might. Bob, some people log on but never comment anything, just listen and also not leave a thumbs up. Yeah. Well, that's just the way it is. Some people have time to check in and listen. Some people don't. And, and I don't know if the thumbs up option is available from your phone or not. I don't know if some people are just listening various ways, but yeah, I appreciate the thumbs up and the comments. Brian, a fire safety tip: do not use oxy on a cutting torch to blow stuff off your pants. A guy at Rescar nearby me made that mistake. He won't do that again. Okay. That does not sound like a good plan. I don't even know why he thought that was a good idea. Yeah, definitely. That was a big thing with the airline industry. They made a very they made it very obvious that in the areas where they were rebuilding oxygen equipment or whatever had to do with straight up oxygen, you couldn't have anything in the area that had grease. You couldn't have anything that had grease. And I guess, and I have not researched it beyond the fact that they said stay away from us with grease, that apparently the oxygen somehow can cause a fire with grease. I don't know. I just remember the signage was very bold and very obvious. The green labeled oxygen, keep oil and grease and all that stuff away as a safety precaution. So, assuming this guy had something on, I don't know what he had on his pants, but yeah, that just does not sound good at all. But I'm sure he learned pretty quick. So we all do dumb things once in a while, and okay, Jorge, I got your email. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about, but I forgot about the hats you were sending, so I'll have to go check and see if they've arrived. But I did want to mention that as well, that there's other hats, the next generation of hats that I'm having made, that there's 2 samples being shipped out to me soon, and so once I verify those that I like them, then they will be ordered. So hopefully that is soon as well. Jerry, there's special lubricants for O2. I service O2 equipment. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there has to be something in it. It has to be very neutral. Obviously they have those precautions for a reason. So, now, not to get too far off subject, but I'm going to this weekend. We're gonna try to get together with some friends and go to the lake. Go to the camper. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I haven't had opportunity, but I'm going to try fishing. I'll say this. I'm going to try fishing. I'm not much of a fisherman. I'm sure there's plenty of people that can fish and know everything about it, but I am not a dedicated, knowledgeable fisherman. But I was just thinking about that because um, my dad likes to fish, and he has left fishing equipment at my house for decades. Like he would go somewhere and come home with fishing poles or tackle boxes, and he would say, "Here, you need to take the kids fishing," or something like that. Well, my kids never had any interest in fishing, and I didn't have any interest in fishing. But now I'm going to try to I'm going to try some fishing at the lake. So I've sent pictures to a friend of mine who is an avid fisherman that, hey, I have these are my fishing poles. I know nothing about them. Here's some tackle boxes with stuff in them. I know nothing about them, and I'm going to try to do some fishing. So maybe next week I'll have an update on fishing because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a shot. And then the other thing from that is I've been making a subtle attempt at finding a small boat that we can, nothing. I don't want some big power boat that you can ski behind. I don't want a pontoon boat. I want basically a glorified John boat that I can take out, just me and my wife. If we just want to go for a ride on a lake, and if we can get one of those that we can use for fishing or something, maybe all the better. I don't know. So that is something else that's kind of, over here in the back of my head somewhere. Just trying to find something that suits the need, because I don't want to have. You can easily invest lots and lots of money in a boat, and I don't want to do that. It's got to be something I can afford and still enjoy. So something else on the agenda, and hopefully I can figure that out. But that's the plans for this weekend. And I'm just now noticing I'm at an hour and 42 minutes, so may end up going a full 2 hours on this one. I don't know. One other thing that I've talked about it recently is on the Jade Mustang, that I'm trying to get work done on that car on the weekends. Well, I did some work on it, and I wanted to, I don't know, I guess point some things out. The tricky part with the doors on these cars, the really tricky part is all the mechanicals inside, obviously. Sheet metal, that's easy. You can fix that stuff. But the mechanical stuff inside the doors, when you compare them to a modern car, the modern cars, you can take out the whole window track, the motor, the cable, all in one shot, put in the new one. And it's really not, it looks complicated, but it's really not. But man, these old ones, I have taken out the glass out of the Jade doors. Oh man, what a fight. What a fight. And part of it is the fact that the tracks where your slides are, at some point in their history, I don't know what they would have used as a lubricant, if it would have been like a standard grease, or if there's a special lithium grease or something in the past. But whatever has been in there all this time is all gummed up. So for me to get the window out of the one door, I had to like really dismantle stuff, like the track that goes on the aft end of the door. I could not get the window out. The sliders would not slide up far enough in that track that I could get them out. So I had to take it apart and take the track out of the inside of the door so that I could get the window out, which is really just a struggle. Just a struggle. But they're apart. And the reason I did that, because I got to get the the inside of the doors stripped as best I can, get them in epoxy, and then decide on what I'm going to do. Because I know the interior of the car is going to be black, so that's easy enough to address. But the perimeter of the door where the body color goes, I've got to fix that, make that right. I'll probably remove the data plate, VIN plate that's on the door just for a cleaner finish, and then put new rivets in. But man, it's a struggle on those doors. I wish there was an easier way to do it. Jorge, fish off the kayak. Yeah, well, I do have a kayak. I could try that, but I don't have it's a standard kayak. It doesn't have any rod holders or, be really kind of tricky. Jerry Tyler, they used white grease, bad stuff. Yeah, oh man, it is a tough, it took me a lot longer than I wanted it to get those. It was easier to get the vent window out than it was to get the main glass out. And I want to be very careful with these because being this is a factory AC car, it has the green tinted windows. And I really love those green tinted windows. Even if I didn't have an AC car, I'd probably want to put those green tinted windows in. I think they look cool. And of course, it's going to look really good, or should, with this car being Gulfstream Aqua. So you have a green car with a green tint on the windows. Just a great combination. Collab 1000. Everything must come out first. Yeah. Well, it's a tough thing. And the really bad part is when you take something like this apart, it's a good idea, to take notes. But also when you remove hardware, put the bolts back where they came from. That's probably the biggest thing. Always put the bolts back in the holes they come out of. The other thing I had to do, which was disappointing, because there's three on the 68, there's 3 screws that hold the window to the track. And on one side, I was able to get the screws out, but on the other door, they would not come out no matter what I did. I even tried heating them up, put solvent on, but they stripped out. So I had to drill those 3 screws out in order to get that loose. But the hardest part was that the slide track all the way in the back. I did not want to let go. It was really tough. Jerry, also you need to remove the regulators before moving the glass. Well, that may, and I know on the 65 and 6 that may be more appropriate, but I can tell you that I've removed the glass on both of my 68 doors, and the regulators are still in there. I didn't take any of that out. And I don't plan to. I want to leave them right where they're at. Because it has like I said, it's got those 3 screws that hold it to the mechanism, and then there's one bolt that has it's an up stop. So whenever you're cranking the window up, it has a stop. That's all you really need to remove if you can get it out of those tracks. Yeah, it'll definitely test your patience. Rick, please let us know exactly what color you use for the black interior. I've heard a lot of different opinions on exactly what color to use. Well, yeah, I'll see what I can come up with. I know the Jade Mustang, I mean, I want it to look good, but I'm not worried about it looking like a 100-point show car. So I don't know what I'm going to use on the interior yet for the doors or the dash. That's still up in the air. It could be rattle cans. Because it's not that important at this point to me. I have new door panels to go in. I'll have new, door handles and all that sort of thing. But I have not fully decided on what I'm going to do for that. But when I do, I'll let you know. Another option is the I've seen it done that people use a vinyl wrap on the grain areas. They've actually had it wrapped in vinyl, and it looked really good. It looked really good. So maybe another option, at least for the doors. I don't know yet on the rest of the car. Warwagon, have you ever had aftermarket Mustang fender or quarter panel actually fit without cutting and tweaking it? Whew, that's a tough question. No. The answer is no. No. Only thing I can tell you, the cars that I've had the best luck with for that aspect is like the 68 Camaro that I did. I had AMD quarter panels and deck filler panel and tail panel, and those things almost like fell into place. I mean, they were just so well made that things just almost popped right on in comparison to the Mustang stuff, which is, who knows, where they come up with the patterns and stuff. But anyway, yeah, the answer is no on the fenders and quarters for Mustangs. Jerry, yes, 68 is different from 66. Yes. Yeah, it is different. Yeah, LOL. Jeff, Barry, and all, you got my full attention now for as long as this lasts. Okay. Yeah, Jeff. It's probably not going to be much longer. It's already, I'm going to stop at 2 hours, which will be 5 o'clock our time. Marshall, the only thing aftermarket parts fit on Mustangs is the box they came in. I will agree with that, except the only panel out of anything that I've put on is the original tooling tail panel for the 65 and 6 Mustang. That one, you can almost like just kind of hold it in place and it'll just kind of pull itself onto the car. That's the only panel that I've had just fit. And I've had pretty good luck with cowls. The aftermarket cowls are really close. I haven't had, that many things to do on the cowls. Other than that, not much. Not much. Jeff, those 60s fitters online really knew their stuff. Yeah, they did. I would like to see a video of them assembling the window regulators and glass and vent windows in real time. If they have one online somewhere of the Ford production plant, these guys just, they'll show them. It'll look like they're just dropping stuff into the car and then just turning some bolts as it goes down the assembly line, and it's perfect. So I would like to see how they did that. Sean, what about the Dynacorn Mustang panels? They don't fit any better than the rest. Well, yeah. If you've seen my videos, the bulk of parts that I've put on have all been Dynacorn, especially Brooklyn Pony. But you still have, the fenders, tons of modifications, doors, quarters. And I say Dynacorn, and what I really mean is they had Dynacorn labels on the box. So whenever you pull out a fender that's a black panel and it says Dynacorn on the box, but if you pull the label off, it'll say made in China, then is it really a Dynacorn part, or is it a Dynacorn sticker on the same part that everybody else sells? So that's where you get some confusion. I don't know if they've improved on that recently or not, but some panels are pretty good and some panels are not. But again, they'll have the Dynacorn sticker on them, and I've shown this in my videos. Here's a Dynacorn sticker on this box, but it's the exact same box that the generic part came in. They just put their sticker on it and charge you more money. But I think they've done some improvements on that. But anyway, that's all I can really say on those. I don't know how to say that. I know it says CLABE. So Clabe 1000. Only thing on my 66 cow fit good. Anything else, forget it. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Every car is custom. Every single car is custom. Kind of one-offs, every one of them. Jeff Reynolds, very modern fitters describe those old guys' methods as cheating. That's a poor excuse for not being able to figure things out. Yeah, I wouldn't call it cheating. That's a skill set that they learned, and they learned quickly to make these old cars fit. It's not like the new stuff where it's computer designed and laser cut and stamped, and they had to do a lot of mods to make things continue down the assembly line and look good. So Brian, thanks for this again, Barry. You've held me long enough. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Oh, not being about equals able. Yes, I get you, Jeff. Old days, we didn't have Google and YouTube. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. We've come a long way in the fact that we have this technology. And even today that I sit here and I'm rambling on to a quiet garage talking to a camera and a microphone, and it's being, broadcast in a sense around the world, live, and people can interact and take part in it. And, that's just, I wouldn't have thought of this when I was, 12, 15, 20s, 30s. Wouldn't even cross my mind that something like this would even be possible. And then to that end, there's actually people that are, want to participate. So if the normal person walking by, if they saw me sitting here just rambling on and talking to my computer, they think I was crazy. But Marshall, I have to think that it helped the assemblers that they were doing the same thing all day, every day. Yes, I agree with that 100%. One of the things I saw a video on was, I think it was from India, and there's a motorcycle company over there that used to be British. I had one for a little period of time. It was a British bike that they sold all the machinery to India, and now they produce it. I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, I think it was this company that they were painting gas tanks. Now these gas tanks were a very specific, tank, a very specific design. And I was amazed at this video. You're talking about somebody doing the same thing over and over and over. These guys were using, brushes, like for pinstripes, brushes. And they had like a table that would rotate, like a freewheel spin rotate table. And they would take this gas tank, and it's like you didn't see anything on the tank as far as a pattern, and they would dip their brush, and you would just see them start to run their brush around to make a pattern that followed the shape of the tank. And as they're doing it, they're rotating it, and using both hands at the same time. And the guy would make like one pass, flip it over, go to the other side, make a pass, stand it up, and then whatever else they did afterwards. And it was just like, but the guy's, that's all he's probably ever done for 20 years is that same pattern on that gas tank over and over and over and over. Yeah, Enfield. Yes. I think it's Enfield. Yep. Thank you, Warwagon. I had one for a brief period of time. I thought I would be an Enfield, guy and like it. I was wrong. It was really wrong. Jorge, YouTube is great help. Yep. All right, we're running out of time. Did they have cars that long ago? Yeah. Tree trunk lifts and dirt. Yes. And I've used trees to straighten out bent frames before. So let's see. And those old guys had real skills and troubleshooting skills. Yes, they did. Yes, again, Enfield. Jeff, Barry, I have to remind my son that amateur not available in my local library has to be sourced by my librarian from another library. Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it used to be. I don't know if you're still, like that or not. Yeah, Royal Enfield. Barry, there's no need to rush. Well, you're right. There really isn't. But I have to do some planning for our weekend event. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Guy went to India and brought back one. Had nothing but problems. Yeah, I bought one used. I think I rode it once. Realized this is not a Honda. This is not a Yamaha. Not even a Harley. So yeah, it had to go. Boondocker, remember when our only option for JC Whitney or local Napa? Yes, I do. Okay, is there a Monday show next week with the holiday? I plan on it. I plan on being here Monday night at 7 o'clock. Okay, with that, I'm going to call it a day. I've been sitting here for 2 hours. I need to get up and move around for sure. Yeah, honeydews, of course. Dave, glad you're here. I'm going to respond to your email in just a minute. Thank you for that. So hopefully I can get some. I got my out-of-state fishing license. Hopefully I can do something and catch some fish this weekend. At least try. I don't know. But otherwise, it'll be Monday night. I'll be back here Monday night at 7, unless something comes up, and there shouldn't be anything interfering. It should be a go from that standpoint. So, again, thank everybody for watching and participating. It's nice to have everybody here checking in, and yeah, might catch a cold. I hope not. But anyway, I'll be back at 7. I'm hoping to have some video coming out soon. I'm not sure exactly what it'll be on. As I said, I'm trying to take up, fix loose ends stuff on the Brooklyn Pony until I get more parts and pieces. So I have to deal with that. And that's going to be it for tonight or today or this evening or whatever part of the world you're in. But thanks for being here. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.